Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. This is the Western Spectrum coming to you, of course, live from Kisumu County. Today is the 4th of May 2026. And if you're keen on dates, yesterday was the World Press Day. And of course, the day was commemorated across the globe and, of course, locally. But here in Kisumu, we shall be commemorating that day in a special way. Journalists from this region, and especially the Kisumu Journalist Network, will be gathering at the Blood Transfusion Center at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital to donate blood. And then, of course, thereafter will be planting trees. Of course, that is a small, kind gesture as journalists from this region that we can actually show to the community by being part and parcel of them, basically discarding our pain today to do good for the community. But coming back to what we are used to for doing every Monday morning, 8 to 9, the Western Spectrum. Today we are discussing the first African Talent University that was given interim accreditation here in Kenya. And of course, we'll be talking about a man who has been behind that struggle for the last 2 decades. He's tried each and everything, knocked each and every door to ensure that indeed that happens. We'll be asking various questions, of course, starting from what the university portends for this region and, of course, Africa as a whole, but also what you need to actually join in that university. But more importantly, how then do we nurture and transform talent from what we are used to, just talent, into a money-minting venture, given, of course, the latitude of what we call formal employment is quickly shrinking. Professor Humphrey Obora, welcome to the set. African Talent University. Right. You've been fighting for this thing for a very long time. Finally, you've given interim accreditation. What does it mean?
Well, you know, in Africa, education had been standardized. And anything less than academic was viewed to be zero. Natural abilities, experiential potentials were seen as byproducts. Unfortunately, government determines trust and credibility. For government to accept, to accredit, and to allow such a university means the vast majority now can trust that talent, experience, and academics can coexist, and that true national potentials can carry the currency of the next generation of Africans. May I make it clear at this very onset that talent is not comedy. Talent is not sports. Talent is not music, because the impression in most Africans is that talent is something to do with those. No, it's a lie. Talent is natural, God-given human metrics, and talent is measurable.
And probably that disconnect between realizing or actually knowing what talent is vis-a-vis what we actually as Africans or Kenyans know, what we call talent, of course, that running around with a ball, kicking a ball, and of course boxing. Has it contributed immensely in terms of us Africans not recognizing talent from the onset, and actually now what you're actually saying the past week, punishing our kids through the education system for things that they are not well good at?
I've put it, Simon, better than you've said it, because one, academics is a byproduct of talent. The origin is talent. The manifestation, or what we call nurturing, which means making sure that human metrics do have value in life. One of them is through academics. But then they standardized academics and forgot the origin of academics. It's a disaster. Today, we have children who only use their tongue to taste beer, to taste coffee, to taste wine. Now, if you go to EABL, you'll find people who are blindfolded in about 10-15 minutes, they'll tell you the year of that brew, what it portends for the larger population, and if they are not there, you can't brew in bulk that wine. And in just those 10 minutes, you leave your 2M. That's how they earn their living. And if you wanted to make sure that you understand talent, that's a precise one, because where is the syllabus or curriculum for that one? The more you understand those kind of things, the more you understand a lot more things. When we started this journey in 1999, when I was in the UK, by the time I came back in about 2000, and we got the dialect education in 2002, licensed by Professor George Sechochi, who was then the Minister for Education, I know I disturbed the system. Those days I said a dropout can actually access a degree, and I looked stupid. And I said a D- guy could end up doing better than an A grade student, because the D- was not to do with natural abilities. It was to do with sickness, pregnancy, or natural disappointments in the learning process, which we don't take care of. There are girls that unfortunately get pregnant over December. The exam is the following year.
So, Prof, you are saying that the academic system as is, there are so many other external factors that actually contribute to the output ultimately in the national exams, and that alone cannot actually be used to gauge one's ability in so many spheres.
Said that the D- and the D+ end up employing the A's and the B's. And this is now the reason. You have to understand the reason. It is because the natural ability remains intact. It never changes. That's why the people who have natural potentials will drop out of mainstream education, will fight to find a window out to go and record their music, will go under the belly of a bus and set up a big clearing and forwarding company with a branch in Dubai and New York. I drop out. And our universities will send their own master degree students to do internship at the dropouts organization. And the dropout must sign that they're competent enough to graduate. But when the dropout goes to the same university and says, I'm the guy you send the master's degrees, then they tell him he's not qualified. Then you don't understand the meaning of education. There are mismatches that we do have in the learning process. So this university comes in to fill in that gap.
How then, before you just talk about the university, how then do we bring ourselves to the fact that a school dropout, a class 2 or class 3 or class 4, or even a high school dropout, can actually sit in a theater room and actually operate on a patient? How then do we change our mindset from the fact that someone who's actually never sat in a class of, let's say, engineering, can actually be at the apex of engineering organization and actually dictate to people who've actually sat in class for years, just trying to understand the nitty-gritties of engineering? How then do we actually, as a society, accept that? Because it is a long call for us to actually begin to accept that.
We do, and what we are advocated for are 3 modes of learning: talent-based, experiential, and academics, because academics still has its own value. But academics cannot be exclusive at the expense of talent, at the expense of experience. But for your question, I'll put it this way. In Baringo, we've seen over and over midwifery. For long in ages of civilization, people have done surgery. People have done midwifery. These people in the villages have delivered babies years and years. We could only perfect it, and that's the essence of learning. But let me put you in the engineering. I know at my parent University of Nairobi, the lift at the engineering department just broken. and they have to look for a person with no degree to repair it. This is truth. You know, in your village, the person who makes the best roofs is not even a Form 4 leaver, but they make roofs. You go looking for them. This you know. You know, in your village, a guy who never went past primary school is the electrician. He fixes these things, you know them. Now ask yourself a question. If the guy is already fixing electricity in the village, but is a primary school dropout, what is it that you're taking that guy to learn in the university? It is crime to ask somebody to learn what they already know. This is criminal. If he is the guy who makes the best roofs in the village, he interprets the architectural designs and he adds the tinge of creativity and innovation. What new thing are you going to train this person? And it is that mismatch that we do have. Now we do have, after 20 years struggle, that someone, people, an institution can understand that innate potential and translate it and equate it with traditional academics. So if you're a dropout, and I'm saying and repeating, if you're a dropout and you have shown your potential by doing things innately, uniquely, and sometimes with a tinge of rare abilities, I am telling you, your university is finally here. Today, a dropout, someone with low grades, but has potential with national abilities, we shall admit you. We shall admit you not just like that, but assessing what you have actually done or what you portend by assessment using new technology known as human anthropobiometry. Today, technology is with us. If you give me a 4 or 5-year-old child, I can tell you the potential of that child, from which I can excavate the GINA values. GINA is the SI unit for talent. Talent is measured using a unit called GINA, and an average human has 142 GINAs of talent. Those metric values, we convert them into credits. Under UNESCO 2005 protocol, credits are accumulated based on your natural abilities, based on your experiences, and also based on academics. So I'll give you an example. You have a diploma, but you went to work as a cashier. Finally, you're the branch manager of the bank. Your children are now 25 plus. Now you want to continue education because you left in the middle when you're a young man, or in your 40s or 50s. In the past, in the academics, they look at your diploma and tell you you have 2-3 more years to reach a degree. We're saying no. We have to know the current potential, the current value of this person. If you evaluated his experiences, if you evaluated his talent value, you'll get additional credits. A diploma is essentially 80 credits under that protocol. If through talent and through experiential values, we get additional 50 credits, he'll have 130 credits. Under that protocol, 150 credits makes a bachelor's degree. He will be only 20 credits shy of a degree. That means we shall give the person the benefit of constituting a project. That means a summary documentation of what he has done, where he's working. That project will summarize the value in the past and the value current. And it's the project we shall submit to the university, hence certification. And that means it might only take 1 or 2 months. Now you remember now, people didn't understand long ago.
Yeah, that's the question I want to ask you because, I'm looking at what you're explaining, and I'm already seeing trouble. Because when you started DALC several years back, right? And several organizations, organizations and of course politicians were part, or let me say high-profile Kenyans were part and parcel of the process. And the certification they got from those institutions, to a certain level, were not recognizable in our system. To the extent that even after by the time you went to court to actually find that ruling that was favorable to the institutions that you're actually running at the time, that is DALC, it was already too late for them. The question that I've asked, and you've not answered comprehensively, was how, as a community, do we bring ourselves to the table and accept the fact that a Form 2 dropout can actually have these credits and hold a master's without going through the entire system of education? That is one. Two, how then, as an employer, do I accept the fact that Professor Humphrey dropped out in class 2, but he's actually going to head this organization because of the innate, everything that we've actually done, talent and everything that he has, and he's actually grown through the ranks, through the credits, and we feel that given his experience and everything, he can actually hold this position. As a community, how then do we bring ourselves to the table and accept that?
Someone, there is a difference, a union between knowledge and wisdom.
Yes.
If your knowledge was little, you have to have the wisdom to lift it to a new reality. And that starts with the government, and the government has started. The government actually accepted this long ago by changing from 844 to CBC, albeit wrongly. I've talked that before here. Now the government has accredited the Africa's first talent university, meaning, and the minister told me, as I received the certification, we know the journey you've come from. We expect you to be the pillar of this CBC. They know. It's not that they don't know, they know. If you know, as an African, that the Muzungu who holds a diploma runs Safaricom, do you believe that Michael Joseph had a PhD? Do you believe that people running those blue chip, those Muzungus, have even a degree? Some of them have just diplomas. But they do it so well. But in Africa, you believe so much in academics that the head of an institution must hold a PhD.
Must have papers.
You are confused
forever.
and you are losing. And you've lost for so long. And you got to change. When new knowledge appears, you have to have the wisdom to lift that new knowledge. And you have to celebrate it and accommodate it and excel. We say in Africa, long ago, 60 years ago, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, Korea were at the same economic level as Kenya. Now, they are more than 1,000% more than us. You're good at describing the problem, but you're not good at lifting off to find solutions. I can't tell you more than I've said.
Yes. Then you have talked about the government actually being the first to actually accept the reality. One of the programs that the government is actually currently running is a certification of natural skills, what you'd call actually talent, right? And through NITA, of course, they are looking at very talented people, skilled people at the basic level. Those that have actually dropped out of school or have actually cleared school. However, they do not have certifications in their specific areas. Do you feel, as a person who's actually closely fought for skill and talent recognition in this country, do you feel that is a step in the right direction, and probably what needs to be done so that then we can actually further and ensure that these people, apart from just preparing them in terms of being able to access government what we call tenders or job opportunities, do you think we are actually doing it the right way in a manner that these people ultimately they're actually going to benefit as they're supposed to?
Two things the government has done. One, to realize that rote learning in the academics was not helpful. So there's an attempt within the CBC to change it within the basic education. And again, government, by realizing that people within Juakali sector are skilled, have knowledge, is another very great attempt. However, who were the people involved in these circumstances? Yeah. These are the people I was with long ago, and I thought the ideas were good, but instead of incorporating those ideas, they decided to steal the idea and make it their own. And the problem lies there. And government need to know it's not enough to listen to people who parade new ideas which they've copied from elsewhere by saying, give us, because they're in position, give us a proposal. I used to hear, give us a proposal. You give the proposal, the guy tries to mend it a little, but you know, there are things you can't mend. This one of NITA, they thought that by certifying Juakali people is beneficial for them because they'll now get government tenders. Let me ask you, Simon.
Yes.
You don't need mere certificates to get government tenders. I can even just have your portfolio and get a tender. In fact, if you're good enough, people have been going to those Juakali people and ordering things. It doesn't add any value to a Juakali person by just giving a certificate. It doesn't make sense.
Prof, the argument was that some of these tenders require specific qualifications, right?
So what should have been changed? Was it that that requirement, or which should have come first? The requirement should have been eased. You don't give somebody a certificate and that's it, that you're going to prove the part. After all, having the certificate, even those who had it are not getting jobs. That's the truth. So there's going to be an equilibrium. Everybody will now have the certificate and it doesn't get the tender anyway. You don't solve the problem that way. What should have happened would have been to recognize the potential of that person and in every cohort understand what the mismatch was and how we could improve that person to do better. Let me give you an example. We've seen Asians come from India. They walk to Juakali sector and they see the potentials of those people. Then he builds a supermarket. He knows the people capable of doing the right things. So he gets the products of that person at a throwaway price with a little bit of improvement. And he sells it more than 100%. Who has done better? Is it what the government is doing by giving certificates of that person from India? We have a problem. Now, listen. Why government missed the point? Both CBC, and for your information, what is NITA? The guy who did that used to be at Commission for Higher Education. Then he started by creating something called skills data, but I knew he was going to fail. When he failed, he started something called Kenya National Qualification Authority, which you have today. And now they're doing what is called RPL, recognition of prior learning. And I sat with the late Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, and I told him, and he understood me. It's not enough to give certificates. Good enough, you recognize and you give him certificate. Not bad. But it's just the 10, 20%. There is a real thing you have to do. Now, we have a tool that can excavate the true values for those people. It's called Matric. Okay? This has the potential to understand a 50-year-old when she was 8-year-old. I want you to understand this deeply. That you can be 50 and I can see you by reverse engineering when you are 8-year-old. And then I can see what you could have been. Then I can see what you're doing, and using technology, I can tell what is the additional value I can give in what you have and what else, thereby you can create new enterprises. That makes more sense than just giving certificates.
Having said that, Prof, because I wanted to say, reminding me of my lost opportunity. I'm probably 50 or 60, and they're telling me that probably I would have done well in this sphere. Probably it's too late to change much. However, what we can change now is the learning institutions that we have. And the question then I'm asking is that looking at the institutions of higher learning, they have been accused severally for churning out one half-baked candidates, graduates. Two, they've also been accused of engaging in theory, doing a lot of research, and most of that research, of course, just lies in the shelves to gather dust. What different thing are you bringing on the table with this African Talent University that will make me as a parent say, let me take my child to this organization and not follow this process that we've actually followed over the years and has left me with my child in the house?
Or even a basic teacher in high school, I see you as a talent spotter or identifier. There will be basic things you see in your children on a daily basis. Huyu mtoto na stima. Huyu mtoto na mawaya. Huyu mtoto anaimba sana, penda wimbo sana. Why? When they arrive, before I assess them, they will give me that background. You see where the government goes wrong. They imagine that talent spotting, identification, mtu anacheza mpira sana, atakuwa kama Ronaldo. Haje, hawezi kuwa mpaka apimwe. You cannot decide that somebody has malaria just because he has fever. Anatetemeka sana.
Na anatoka jasho sana.
No. Inaweza kuwa pneumonia. Pima kwanza, hakikisha ni pneumonia, because symptoms are the same. Talent spotting, identification are just symptoms, and symptoms can be a liar. You have to know the exact sickness. Please, there's no rush. And that's why tool and method are very important. Lazima upime na uhakikishe. Now, wewe umeona mtoto yako kuna kitu fulani na hii mtoto, and you're trying to push your child to do engineering, push your child to do medicine, but you're seeing this guy is a great dancer. You're seeing...
And parents say, tunasema, hii kucheza yako itakupeleka wapi? Soma vitabu.
Dunia, hiyo mchezo ndio future. Kubali sasa. Hiyo unaona ndio sasa future ya huyo. And today parents know this. Wewe unaona mtoto yako ni mzuri sana kwa vitu ya medicine, na vizuri umetumia pesa afanye medicine, grade imetoka C-. What do you do? Will you start now looking for something else? No. Kuja tupime, tuhakikishe, because C- might not represent your child. We've seen children with a D+ who are medical or engineering candidates. And we have had a report, change systems. This university is going to change systems. Having a D+ and having potential for engineering and medicine is very rife. It's not a lie, it happens. We have also those with A- grade. You want to fanya law, fanya engineering, but the guy is a great candidate for rugby. Rugby should be number 1. If you take the person to do law, engineering, they'll do it, but you are seeing this guy is saving his pocket money and spending more time in the field. Shortly, and without you knowing, he drops out of mainstream learning and now is a star in rugby. People forget. We see these things. We see these things.
True, Prof. I was looking at your argument and while we are in an institution, and you've also introduced the 3 pathways, right?
Yeah.
Similar to what we have with the CBE today. You were sat on this chair a couple of months back, and you really punched holes in the pathway system that has actually been introduced by the government, and you're even laughing at it and saying that ini nini wanafanya. I want to know how different your pathways process is different from what the government has introduced, and then how do we marry the pathways that are actually introduced to ensure that ultimately at the end of the 2 or 3 or 4 years, the students will actually be in institutions that will actually have a fully baked student or graduate coming out and actually being useful to the community.
When I sat here, I said, you don't just make a pathway by talking. Is it a pathway for elephants? Is it a pathway for antelopes? Is it a pathway for ants? If you make a pathway for antelopes and you expect elephant to pass there, they'll break the pathway. This is a truth. You have to know your pathway. What I'm talking about is not a pathway. I'm talking about 3 modes of learning.
Yes.
Talent-based, meaning you are assessed innate potentials on earth, and we do have a talent report, followed by a learning prescription. Now, listen. When we do assessment, we come out, just like in hospital. In hospital, they come out with a medical report. But a medical report is not a solution. You have to go back to the doctor, and the doctor writes a prescription that solves the problem. Now listen again. We assess and we come up with a talent report, meaning we come out with your true, innate, and natural abilities, metric values. Then we interpret that into a learning prescription, meaning the prescription has what is it that we can use to enhance or to make good of those potentials, and how much does it cost from each. Now, each of those, we call them talent GINA tasks. So away from academics, which are syllabus or curriculum, we use a learning prescription. That's talent-based learning. And in the prescription, there'll be tasks, the GINA tasks. GINA task is not like any task. Have your tongue olfactory. What are the GINA tasks for it? Special assessors, special rubrics, people with good rubrics will produce them. Then you perform. After performing, we see the quality of what you produce in the real world, which is measurable in GINA credits. Now that's one way of learning. Then we have another. A person, probably a dropout, or even had a degree before, but then is coming back to mainstream learning. This person possesses what they call experiential credits, learned by the world. I am a girl who got pregnant at 16. I got married, and after being married, today I'm 24 years of age, still young, but I have 3 kids. That's life achievement. Life achievement. It has its value. Because this girl at 24 with 3 children is not the same as a girl at 24 without children. I have a person 24 years ago did BCom, but I had to raise my family first, so I've looked for a job as a cashier. Today I'm the branch manager of a bank. Now I want to go and do my master's. Will I go in class with children the age of my children? The answer is obvious, no. Why?
But that is happening now today in our education system.
And that's the wrong thing. Now let me tell you the right thing. If you evaluated the achievements of raising children, 24 years, and the work experience that lifted him from a cashier to a branch manager, you'll get a lot of credits. So this fellow doing a master's might, which having a degree is already 150. A master's is 220 by the international standards, okay? If you got another 50 credits, he'll be 200 credits down. Only 20 to go to a master's, meaning we wipe out the coursework. We remain only with a dissertation for 3 or 4 months. Now you understand why during that time I had a problem, because I understood this. They were saying, I'm looking for shortcuts for people. Now you see, it was not a shortcut. It was the understanding. If you have forgotten, there's one governor who was being accused, and the lawyer was very unwise in court. He was saying, what are you telling us? You didn't get a bachelor's, you had a diploma. How could you skip a bachelor's degree to get a master's? Because the lawyer did not understand. In the UK, they understand this. That time she actually became a governor. In the UK, they understand the credit system. You have a diploma, but the additional credits take you direct to masters. It's possible to have a certificate and be taken straight to a master's. But in Kenya, from certificate, diploma, degree, then you don't understand. You are stuck in the old system.
We are stuck in the old
You are
system.
stuck and you are trouble for your own people, and they're not improving. The people who brought you education are not doing what you're doing. You're stuck with what you're given. Please, we have to change. Sorry.
True. Change is inevitable. Prof, looking at your explanation and specifically what you have put forward in terms of identifying talent in the institution and what needs to be done, so that then we don't have pathways, in your words, for elephants, for ants and antelopes. Yeah. And elephants might actually miss their way and actually use the ants pathway. It needs resources. Yeah. It needs that cognitive ability. It needs experience. How then do we move to that level as a country to ensure that we don't have one Africa Talent University in this country, but we have organizations and our institutions, learning institutions, can actually start recognizing this, because the government has actually embraced the pathways in terms of identifying talent quite early and saying that this is what we're going to do with these students. They're going to follow this pathway. Others are going to do STEM, others are going to do arts, and others are going to do social studies. How then what needs to be done as an expert in this or an experienced person in that particular field? What needs to be done so then we put our institutions in a better position, and we just don't have talent, the African Talent University as a single institution in this country?
Two. One, in the beginning, we had a legal document. A legal document. There was no CBC when we started. When we started with Professor Douglas Odhiambo, it was only to align education with the 2010 Constitution. And what they wanted from me was to infuse quality matrices in the learning system. That was what was there. And we had documents, and I still see it on my laptop. How would we implement this? One of the things that we should have done was to embrace the concept of a talent university at the top, then trickle it down and have assessment unit, what we call talent clinics with the related academic clinics. You need to understand standard procedures of doing things. Yes. Without taking too much time, the government of the Republic of Kenya, through the minister, whom I like too much because he talked to me so nicely and very respectful, and seems to understand the problem. I have seen people before. I talked to Magoa, who was very arrogant and brushed off, and he got stuck with it. But I can see Migos Ogamba is very accommodative and understanding. That I must emphasize. Very understanding, and I think he's going places because I can see he sees the point. This is what you need to do. Cut off the cartels. Who are the cartels? Book publishers and the so-called consultants. Whenever a new regime comes, they say the last education system is bad. So that you look good, change the education system. In the meantime, they come with commission of inquiry, and then they put their people in the commission. Then they say a budget is money eaten. This happens every cycle. So we must stop this. Now that I'm speaking, because that time I was speaking, they're listening right now, I can tell you. They're copying. Then they'll come and say, yeah. It's only the implementation which was bad. Otherwise, it was good. They're lying. They're going to lie to the next one. Yes. I can tell you. Please, don't buy this. They'll say, we change CBC to something else. Please. CBC, even if I ask you, what is CBC? What is CBC?
You tell me. You're the expert in the field.
No, you have not answered me.
No, you tell me. I'm here to ask you questions.
No,
so
let
you,
me not ask you. Everyone, trickle down. They'll never tell you what CBC is. Ask any Kenyan. They'll tell you only the meaning of C, B, and C. You'll never tell me what CBC is. Nobody can define it. One day I will. But I'll tell you something.
Why can't you do it now?
No, right away. But because you asked me another very important question, I need to answer that. Let us remain with the word CBC as a name. End of story.
Yes.
Let's not change anything again. But let's go back to the origin. Infusion of quality matrices in the learning system. We have the standard document. I will be meeting education officials. I'm a Kenyan and I have a duty. Kenya has accredited Africa's first talent university as a score. I want to work with the university, one, not as exclusive, but to be a standard to be used by colleges, by schools, by other universities. Apart from establishing the same university in all countries in Africa. Not the physical university as it is, because I'm one person. I cannot have the resources nor the time in life to do it in all countries. But I can use the idea to light the fire in others so that we have a change and leave a legacy for our children and grandchildren.
Children out there, or parents out there who are actually buying into your idea and asking themselves, how do I get to the African Talent University? What are the qualifications? Do you just walk up and say in the morning and say, since I can actually sing very well, then I need to look for these institutions. Since I am very good at wiring, then I need to look for these institutions. Since I'm very good at running, I need to look for these institutions. What are the procedures that can actually put you in a better place in terms of accessing some of these facilities so that then you can move to the next level?
The African Talent University main campus, but we have contact locations in Mombasa, in Nairobi, Nakuru, Eldoret, and Meru. In Kisumu, we are at a place called Bue, Molem, Nyamasaria area, along Kisumu, Kericho Road. In Nairobi, we are at Family Bank Building, Dagoretti Corner, 6th floor, opposite Meteorological Center. In Mombasa, we are at the Lutheran Parish offices.
What do we need to join this university? Because the buildings are all over, right?
Yeah.
But as a parent who is actually watching in the village,
yeah,
what do we need? Is it a matter of just walk in because you feel you have, or we will walk in and then of course you'll use your machines to determine our pathways, or it will be based on what we can actually do as Kenya?
One, if you have grades, we still accept academics. But if your grades are low, don't run away, because you don't look at grades that much. If your grades are E, D minus, we shall still admit you, because
there's a chance for them.
No. We'll assess and find your other potentials, which grades could not discover. That's for your children. If you're an adult that left school long time ago because of those problems we've said before, and you have experience, your experience is already knowledge. We'll evaluate it and have it credit value. In both, we write a report. That report contains credits. That credit is transferable. Now, if you don't have grades, your talent report becomes your admission document. If you don't have grades and you have experience, your experiential report becomes your admission document. But if you have grades, we shall still admit you because we still have the academic wing. And there are people who can do both. If you're good in academics and equally good in talent, why not? Why can't you get 2 degrees, 3 degrees at the same time? The more the merrier. You know, in Africa, people believe you choose. How about if you're good in 3? You know, in Kenya, we have a problem. How about a child who gets all straight A's? What's the career?
Becomes a jack of all trades. Bro, there are number of students that actually went through your initial institutions, DAP, right?
Yes.
And I know the court ruled on this. However, there are others that actually were in these institutions, and given the negative publicity that was actually given at that time during those cases, right? Many will be asking themselves, where do we move from here?
Answer is very simple. Ladies and gentlemen, I fought the fight 20 years. I believed I was right. And you can see I'm right. Government has finally accepted that I was right. It had to take us to go to court. I know the case of the late Honorable Soita Standa and Ole Kores of Kajiado. People, they were very harassed. I'm sorry for them. We had to go to court, and we won in court. People don't know this. But people who wanted me not to be on the scene because they had stolen the idea to make CBC made it so hard. In the media, they blocked us. They paid bloggers to make sure that our names were tarnished and that we sank. They came to Bue, where I was building the university. They vandalized it. They burnt the Awasi Lands Office so that I don't get title deeds, because it's a requirement to become a university in Kenya. I am saying the 20-year battle is over. Please come back. You will be the first ones for me to provide you with those credit transfers.
Thank you very much, Prof. Prof. And I want to put it to you. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, of course, with our wider reach, and especially in rural areas, gives you the best platform to actually advertise your institution. So, of course, I'll be coming to you so that then we can actually work together, and especially for this program, right?
Thank you. How about that?
That is Professor Humphrey Obora, the founder of the founder and sponsor of the African Talent University, the first of its kind in this country. Of course, Kenya is a country of first. We always coming first in various sphere, and this is a very first African talent or the talent university in Africa, of course, spearheaded by Professor Humphrey Obora, who's actually been fighting this war for the last 20 years. And he says, of course, the war is now won, and we are moving into the next step. Of course, placed forward so many ideas on what the government needs to do, and of course stakeholders in the education sector need to do in terms of ensuring that indeed we move together in this journey towards ensuring that those that are skilled and talented at a very basic level, their talents and skills can actually be identified quite early, so that then they can actually become meaningful people in the future. This is a discussion that we will continue on our social media platforms at Charles Simon, on all our social media handles, and of course on Majenga digital platforms, of course, that it was also running this broadcast live, and of course also on KBC channel 1, all social media handles, and of course we'll also be following it keenly, so then we can actually bring you details as and when they unfold. Of course, Prof, in his true nature, has used some very strong words in some aspect. Those are not our words, but of course they are his, and he's actually personally responsible for it. And on behalf of the team that has actually made this possible, the Miraja Palace Hotel that continues to give us this space, so that then we can use it every Monday, 8 to 9. My colleagues, Christina Diambo on the cameras, and Martin Kibuti on the cameras, and of course my colleague from Mayenga FM, Philippa Miyawa. It's a thank you for us from Kisumu, and I take you back Broadcasting House for continuation of our normal programming.